If you would, you want to stand up, start cleaning the desk off. You guys have a great weekend. So,
Wait, Denise said we were gonna be here. But I know we're doing. Regular school.
They didn't catch my sack on film.
oh yeah? What do you do if somebody tries to kick you out?
Someone kicks me out.
If somebody tries to kick you out, what are you supposed to do?
Try to keep outside.
No.
Nope.
Wrong arm. If somebody comes to kick me, a wrong arm. If somebody tries to reach block me, then I try to stay outside. So that was one thing we needed to do a little bit better was we kind of kept opening up C gap because you and Bennett would stay outside. And then that guy, instead of wrong arming it back in, like when they try to kick you. But there's a lot of things that did good, though. Your hustle was really good. You and Bennett going around fast everywhere. All right, you guys have a great one.
We have that test today, don't we? We don't? No, that's on Tuesday. Wouldn't give you guys the rest today. What do you think today is? You celebrate it. Oh, it's not today.
Okay, I'll stay today.
I didn't study it all. I mean, it's like whatever. Do you think the two was test two?
What? Kelton Markland is next week. The broken orange in the stuff class. He's the head volleyball or but Noah and Kelton are doing really orange the whole time. And then they threw it at the very end and it busted everything. It's like, oh.
You did that? Dirk did it. That was amazing. I know, right? It's so beautiful.
You still have that water
That
bottle?
is hard.
Isn't this water bottle? Oh my god.
Make sure
I didn't know what it was.
That should be right here. You know what?
You
Let's
just.
make one this class.
You know,
Honestly,
Did he know we're there? Yeah, that's cool. Oh, that's about.
He would.
No, estamos en la iglesia. En la iglesia.
Okay. If you would, you got any electronic devices, whatever else, go put those up. Today, what's up? No, sir. Not today. I'm gonna tell you here in just a little bit. Let me get this baby started, and then we'll get rolling. Okay. So, what I want today is we're going to talk about 9/11. Okay. Today, just like every year previous through 2001, and I said a lot of you guys, as far as you weren't here yet, weren't born, weren't thought of, any of that other stuff by then. But in the periods that are up there on the board, period 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, something major happened in the events of the world that made it where it was like a bookmark. That was a big, huge changing factor in the world. Mask on, let me see. Thank you. So, what are some of the world events that you can think of that were really, really important that would be considered a bookmark event in the history of all things in the world? Raise your hand and tell me one. Okay, so the world wars, right? Okay, the world wars, all right? Bookmark of changing events in the world. Yes, sir. Okay, COVID could be a new one, right? Okay, the idea of global pandemics and what it could be. Yes, sir. Landing on the moon, all right? What the next one could be Mars, as far as outstretching into the universe. Trying to find some other places to live at. All right, what else? Yes. Okay, MLK, the idea of civil rights movements. Okay, that's a good one. We talked about one on the review yesterday. That's something that you got to know for your test. So we'll go over it again.
The agricultural revolution.
Okay, the Neolithic revolution, agricultural revolution. The idea that farming forever changed the dynamic of how the United States, how Europe, how Russia, how China, how the globe would react to the idea of farming. Okay, so 9/11 at one point way down the line could possibly be a turning point in how the world handles global frustration, how the world handles global terrorism, how the world was reshaped post 9/11, okay? And that has a chance to be a chapter, a turning point that's in there, okay? So, I mean, this topic is humongous. Like you could spend an entire week easy talking about specific events that happened on the day of 9/11. All right. So what I want to do is just tell me about 5 to 6 things that you know about 9/11. Okay. Tell me about 5 or 6 things that you know about 9/11. Yes, sir. Okay. So the Twin Towers were destroyed. How were they destroyed? Okay. The plane flew into them, right? Okay. And then they crumbled and they fell all the way down. Yes, sir. Yep. Okay. So there was more than one plane. So there's 2 planes in the Twin Towers. I'm on a Zoom recording right now. What's up? Oh, thank you very much, Coach Douglas. Appreciate it. So two Twin Towers flew in. The 2 planes that are there, you got one that hits the Pentagon, and there was another one, okay, Flight 93, that crashed in the middle of the field. You might know anything about that? Tell me a little bit about it.
Like the passengers took control over the plane because they realized what was happening. Crashed it into the field.
Yes. Really, really powerful stuff on that one, honestly. There's a whole movie that's about it, large docu-series. Man, just like making the phone call to your mom on a plane and being like, Mom, I love you. This is going to be the last time I'm ever talking to you. Because this is probably, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That, this is the last time I'm ever going to see you. These people have taken over the plane. We're going to make sure, they're supposed to go to this place, yada, yada, yada. And then overtaking the plane. So, powerful that someone made a life decision right then to take things into their control, into their own hands. Okay, very good. What else?
Didn't one of the planes hit the tower like 7:32?
There were different times. We'll go over it. So most of the time, I think what they're going to talk about is going to be all. It's going to be Eastern Standard. So the second one should have been about 9:15. Whenever it actually hit. How did that day start out?
Like how you planned it?
Like, did anybody know it was going to happen? No. Started out like a normal day. That's the scary part, right? Because it started out just like today. Started out as a normal day of where, you watch the news, you go to school, people go to work, go get breakfast, you're doing this, somebody's in New York on vacation, and the next thing you know, boom, everything changes. Okay? Give me about 2 more things. What happened after 9/11? You can include that.
Dust in the city for like a week or 2.
Okay? So the overall ash that's covered in, the days and days and days and weeks upon removal of debris and rubble, trying to keep as much of it together as they could so they could analyze it and see what the culprit of it was. Yes, most definitely. Okay, so we got into this one. How many of you have been to an airport or flown on a plane? Okay. How long does it take you to get on the plane now? How early do you have to show up to the airport before your plane leaves? Yeah. Okay. So what if I told you that before 9/11, I loaded up in a car, we're running late. I show up to the airport 30 minutes before my plane's supposed to take off. Guy pulls me up right to the terminal. I get out, I got my bag, I walk out, I show my ticket. Don't show any other form of ID, just show my ticket. Give him my bag, walk straight up, grab some lunch or breakfast on the way there, and then all I do is walk right up to the gate, show him my ticket, and board the flight. Okay, 30 minutes max. I'm sitting there ready to take off on time. Now you show up, everybody drops you off way away. Then you get there, you have a bag check-in, you have like 3 forms of identification, you have your ticket, you walk in, there's dogs, there's scanners, there's random people pulled apart to be able to see or searched. The amount of things that you can put in your bag, whether it be a knife or whether it be small bottles of shampoo rather than large bottles of shampoo, different things like that. And the security that goes along with it, super, super mass detail on it now. So that's the whole thing based upon post 9/11. Yes, sir.
So like how they took over the planes, like what did they like
To be honest with you, like the one that was in the Flight 93, they used box cutters. All it was a simple utility knife that slid up. But that hadn't happened before. You know what I mean? There wasn't a terroristic attack in the United States to the point of where the other big thing that they changed was cabin entry. So they used those box cutters to get into the actual cab of the plane, and then they took over as the pilot for the plane. You can't get into the cabinet to the cabin of the plane anymore. You know what I mean? I mean, it's once it's in there, they're secure, they're locked in, it's closed all the way. Things can happen behind, but nothing there. The other thing they have is like a lot of like air marshals, U.S. marshals, things like that will randomly be on flights now to make sure that if anything goes on, that there's a secured person with a weapon, you know, that's on the plane that can diffuse the situation or kind of start it all over again. So it didn't take much, honestly. I mean, it was a simple knife is all it was that took over the planes. All right, yes. Okay. Technically, 9/11 was after 911. Like I remember as a little kid, like learning how to dial 911. So why do we associate that with, and why would they have? Somebody else, you know, kind of brought this up. My son asked me this question last night. You know, he's like, you know, why is it that 911 and 9/11? So once you hear the words or the numbers 911, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Okay, somebody coming for help, right? It's like a distress signal. You know, someone come and help, police officer, fireman, ambulance, somebody's coming to help you. So if 9/11 is associated with the American cry for help, does that make sense? So that was kind of already there, established 911. So 9/11 was a good date for them to choose to be able to make it to where it ties together with cry for American help that's there. Okay? What do you want to know about 9/11? What is something that you may not know about and that you want to know about? There's a ton of information about this. Some of it stretches all the way to the conspiracy theories of the United States government, to what actually happened, to some live footage and things like that. Yes, ma'am.
What were you doing on 9/11?
What was I doing on 9/11? I was in my year and a half of college, first year and a half of college. I was sitting in Wisdom Gym at Tarleton with sports officiating class with Chet Martin. And we're around this round table. There's about 15 people that are in there. And they walk in, they open the door, and they say, everybody needs to go home. And that's all they tell us. So they close down school. They close down high schools. They close down elementaries. They close down everything. Why would they do that?
Because it was a national crisis.
Yeah, it's a national crisis, and you don't know what else is going to go on if there's more that's there. So then from there, I go to the SDC, the Student Development Center, and there's a big screen TV on the bottom floor, and there's probably, you know, a pretty good group of college kids that are down there. And we're sitting here watching the news because that's all that's on TV is the news. But everybody thinks at the time that it's just an accident, that it's just a plane that had flew into a building. It got too low. They didn't know if something went wrong with it. And then I remember, again, very, very vividly, that you see the shadow of another plane off in the distance. And the first thought, you're like, you know, ain't no way in the world this is going to happen. And sure enough, you see this plane coming in, and you see this plane circling, and then you see the plane, an explosion. And I mean, so I remember watching the second plane crash into the other twin tower. I remember watching the towers crumble on live TV. So the other deal was, get something to drink. The other deal is news is different today than what news once was. Everything that was in the news then, there was reports that it was a terroristic attack beforehand, but they did not report it as a terrorist attack. They just said, you know, this is a developing story. We'll get you more information. They didn't report anything as fact until they 100% knew it was fact. And then now, I mean, it's like the race to who gets the first correct answer and just hopes that it's what it is. Okay. So the big deal on there is nobody knew, based upon the news avenue until the second one hit, that it really was a terroristic attack. Okay. So I think I was probably 19 at the time whenever it happened in that area. Yep, I was 19. What else? Ton. Well, you'll see in the video here. So let me put this kind of into perspective for you. Take the entire student population of Stephenville High School, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, and then double that, and that's the amount of people that died that day. Okay? So, whenever I used to teach at HICO, kind of made the same thing. Take the entire town of HICO and double it, and you wipe off the town twice. That's the amount of people that were documented to have perished that day. That includes people that work there. That include people in the flights. That include all the first responders that came to the aid of it. And it was the largest terroristic attack on United States soil. There was one other one that was done by not a foreign terrorist, but a domestic terrorist in Oklahoma City, as far as that goes.
Wasn't that the one under the daycare?
Timothy McVeigh pulled his Ryder truck up to the side of the building, and it blew up the side of the building where the daycare was situated at because of his dispute with the FBI. Yep. So, okay, what else? Yes, sir.
Didn't they have not trampolines to catch the people that would jump off or no?
There was, and again, there's a lot of stories. There's a picture that stays in forever. It's called The Falling Man. And there was people that 90, 70 something stories up that where that plane crashed in, there's no way to get down. Like the elevators are broke there, the stairwells are closed in, you're stuck. To me, the worst two ways to die is burning and drowning. So some of those people chose a different path. They chose their own path. You know what I mean? And they took a leap off of the building to avoid, basically the inferno that was there. And that was kind of that was on live TV. That was a pretty big deal because that's not something that you saw every day on live TV. The idea of what was censored and what is not censored now compared to then, huge difference. I mean, not just in words, but things that people do on TV nowadays are very much more liberal, more open than what they were back then. Okay, what else?
There's a picture of a woman standing on the edge of the building, like pushed up against it.
Yeah, just trying to get out,
Yeah.
trying to get away. Yep. Okay, what else? What else do you want to know about? Who is the guy? Okay, like the guy that did it. Okay, so what happened with the whole deal with this is, and we'll kind of take a backstory in because you got to know what happened beforehand. So there was the Gulf War, and the initial President Bush that was there was a big battle for oil in the Middle East because, money and oil, that's what makes the world go around. All right. So we needed a partnership with a better oil trade, OPEC, everything else that's over there. So we sent what was known as, the Gulf War. And the main kind of purpose of the Gulf War was to secure the United States being able to have a better source of oil, making sure that we were still in the mix so we didn't have to pay, $8 for a gallon of gas. Back then, those people didn't want to fight. There was a lot of people that were forced into the military. There was a good story of a CNN camera crew walking across the kind of the barren wasteland of the Middle East with a CNN news camera on their shoulder, and 30 soldiers surrendering, laying down their guns, putting their hands behind their head and going to their knees and surrendering to a CNN news crew. Had no weapons. People didn't want to be there. They didn't want to fight. Okay. So fast forward to what is the starting of Al-Qaeda, a terroristic cell led by the man named Osama bin Laden. Okay, and you probably heard of Osama bin Laden, maybe. He was kind of one of the big masterminds. They had what was called the deck of cards. So the 52 most wanted terrorists in the world, that went through there. Osama bin Laden was the key #1 target, and that was why it was such a big deal. Whenever SEAL Team 6 goes through the story of landing in Istanbul, coming in, finding Osama bin Laden, escorting his body back across, the ocean. So he was the leader of the terroristic cell that initiated the idea of 9/11. So the terrorist group, Al-Qaeda, it's there. What else? Think of anything? All right, I'm gonna play this video for you then and see if it kind of brings up any questions you may want to ask. This is just about a 3-minute deal.
64 degrees and 8 o'clock. It's Tuesday, September 11th.
Tuesday, September 11th, 2001. An ordinary.
Start it one more time. When I start this, I want you to pay attention to how the newscast starts out.
64 degrees and 8 o'clock. It's Tuesday, September 11th.
Tuesday, September 11th, 2001. An ordinary day in New York City. At 8:46 a.m., that normalcy ends suddenly when hijackers from the terrorist group Al-Qaeda deliberately crash American Airlines Flight 11 into the 110-story North Tower at the World Trade Center. First responders immediately rushed to help.
Dispatch, Captain Brown, line of 3. I'm at the World Trade Center. I'm on the 35th floor. Okay? Just relay the command post. We're trying to get up. Numerous civilians, both stairwells, numerous burners. We're coming down. He's trying to send them down first. Apparently, he's above the 75th floor. I don't know if they got there yet, okay? Okay. Pretty tough, but we're still heads up, right? Okay, thank you.
All 11 firefighters responding from FDNY Ladder Company 3, including Captain Patrick Brown, would be killed that morning. 41 first responders died as a result of the attacks, the largest loss of emergency personnel in American history. Just 17 minutes later at 9:03 a.m., it becomes clear that this is a deliberate attack when hijacked United Flight 175 crashes into the South Tower of the World Trade Center. At 9:37 a.m., a third hijacked plane, American Flight 77, is flown directly into the Pentagon, headquarters of the United States Department of Defense in Arlington, Virginia. Back in Lower Manhattan, at 9:59 a.m., the unimaginable happens. The South Tower collapses. Meanwhile, a fourth hijacked plane heads toward Washington, D.C. Passengers and crew aboard United Flight 93 learn from phone calls about the attacks that have already occurred. With this information, the passengers and crew storm the cockpit. In response, the hijackers crash the plane in an empty field outside Shanksville, Pennsylvania, just 20 minutes from Washington, D.C. All aboard are killed. Back in New York City at 10:28 a.m., the North Tower collapses 102 minutes after being struck. On September 11th, 2,977 people from over 90 nations are killed.
Okay. So let's talk about two things. Number one, the beginning of it, and number two, the ending of it, of that film that's right there. Okay. So again, the idea that it was unknown that that was going to happen. Okay. Again, you can watch YouTube videos, you can see all this other stuff, that there was, warning signs, that there was other ideas that were brought upon, that somebody may have even said, hey, this is going to happen. But it was the first time it had ever happened. So the legitimacy of the claim of this is what's going on was kind of possibly looked over. Then you look at the end of it, and the reason why it's a world history event and not just a U.S. history event is how many countries did they say were affected based upon the 90, okay? So after that comes the idea of basically, George W. saying, hey, if you're not with us, you're against us, okay? So today is kind of, it's known as Patriot Day. So a lot of things changed in the United States, okay? They were granted the opportunity in the name of finding out things in terrorism. They could tap your phones. They could read all your emails. They could take anyone into questioning that they wanted to, because it was in the name of preventing the next terroristic attack. Why would people feel so threatened on United States soil? I mean, I know there was an attack on U.S. soil, but why would they have felt so threatened by people in the United States?
Because there's so many people who never know.
Okay, so that kind of leads to what, you know, you'd associate kind of Islam, Muslim, the idea of Islamophobia with 9/11. And as soon as those times were over with, the same way that in, you know, after Pearl Harbor, people of Asian descent were brought together in pretty much a form of a concentration camp to make sure that they were checked out before they knew if they were a good or a bad person to be in the United States. I want to know what their intent was in the United States. All right. So what if I told you this? What if I told you that the people that flew the planes into the World Trade Centers were actually trained by unknowing American pilot trainers? Okay. So these dudes, they lived here in the United States, like for multiple years, like enough to have a wife and kids and a job and neighbors and buddies that they went out and cooked hot dogs with and drank beers with and watched ball games with. They were normal people. And then whenever it was their time to perform their act of terrorism, it was their time to become who they were in a previous soil. You know what I mean? So there was a flight instructor in Florida that actually taught them how to, unknowingly, taught them how to fly a small plane that was very much like the large plane in order of gears and how to start it off and how to get it going and how to fly it once in air. And then those people turned into, like I said, the bad dudes that were there. So how do you think the United States felt about people of Islamic, Muslim, Middle Eastern traits? Bad. Okay. I mean, there was so we talked about some of the ideas of, you know, bricks being thrown through convenience stores that were owned by people that were there. The mosques, which is like a church for them, you know, some of them were destroyed, some of them were torched, some of them, you know, were speculated as a terrorist cell that was there. The city of Detroit houses the United States' largest amount of, you know, Muslim population that's there. And that was kind of a big deal at the time because nobody knew who was a bad guy. Nobody knew who was a good guy. So then it gets to Guantanamo Bay when they start shipping people off and waterboarding them to try to figure out information, you know, and some were truly terrorists and a lot of them were not. But in the name of making sure it didn't happen again, a lot of the rules were bent in that way to keep America safe. What's something you got a question on from the video? You can think of anything. All right. So what is America like after? The days after 9/11 to how it is now? Yes.
Way higher security.
Okay, a lot higher security. Okay. What if I told you this, like the days after 9/11, because we're not there now, that's for sure. A very, very true sense of patriotism. It didn't matter if you were white, if you were black, if you were brown, if you were from America, if you were not from America, you were attacked. And the sense of you being attacked as an American was a true, true sense of everybody that lives in the United States is for America. So we want to get these guys. We want to repay what was done to us. We talked about Hammurabi's Code and the idea of an eye for an eye. Very much so. An eye for an eye was the sense there. What's the only day in the United States that people really kind of show patriotism now? Yeah, July 4th. Okay. So, I mean, for months and months, you saw almost every house on the block had a United States flag flying by. A lot of people supported the firefighters, the police officers, the medical personnel that rushed in either to the Trade Center or left their home state and went to New York to help clear off the rubble, find loved ones, do other things that were there. The entire United States kind of went together in a sense of unity. Didn't matter if you were from here, didn't matter if you moved here, didn't matter whatever, you were an American, and everybody forgot all the problems that went on within America and focused on one common goal, and that was to go against the people that did this to the United States. What's it like now? What's life like right now? What do you see on the news every single day? Okay, a lot of decisive differences, right? Okay, so there's a lot of America's not as good. America's this is in a derogatory way, okay? So a huge difference between what it was post 9/11 to then, okay? Do a lot of people really think about 9/11 on like a day-to-day basis now? Not really, right? I mean, it's just kind of something that, you know, we talk about in chapter 36 and then we tell you about on 9/11. But the ideas of, you know, some of these people still live with the haunting reminders of it daily. Some of the parents who were either parents of the firefighters or children of the firefighters or things like that lost their parents that day, you know, it still definitely resonates with them on a daily basis. So think of 2 more questions, then I'm going to tell you what your writing assignment is today. Think of 2 more questions. Yes.
So the people who like terrorized, like, are they still like in prison or did they get executed?
Okay, so we had a question a second ago that was like, you know, who did it? And it was Al Qaeda. Okay, Al Qaeda kind of went away. You know what I mean? But there's always a new terrorist cell. It's called ISIS now. A lot of those people that were there were most definitely. And again, this is kind of the crazy part of America. If we had committed that crime in their country, it would have been like automatic execution. You know what I mean? But because they committed the crime in our country, they go through the exact same due process as an American citizen. So it was this kind of long drawn out deal to where there was a jury, it's a regular trial, everything else. And yes, they were convicted of that many murders. Now, of course, those are the people that are connected to it because all of the pilots that were there were no longer alive. Though a lot of them that were in the deck of 52, they're not around anymore because the United States military went and took care of them. You know what I mean? So some got a trial, a lot did not get a trial because it was on their home soil and it was when they were being attacked and everything else. And which that kind of leads to another big thing, and that's the way that the military has changed from pre 9/11 to post 9/11. You think of world wars and other things, and it used to be, hey, country A shows up and country B shows up, and we throw down until there's only one country left. And it's not like that anymore. ISIS and some of those terroristic cells that are there, they fought other countries in Europe, other countries in the Middle East, didn't have another attack on United States soil, but instead of having an army to finance of millions of billions of dollars, what they did was they created small cells, and it was like 10 to 12 people that would break up coordinated attacks, and therefore you would displace an entire army, and you may or may not be caught. People that would sacrifice their lives and be willing to put other people's lives in danger to perform jihad, which we'll get into later on down the line. But yeah, it's interesting how warfare has changed. The idea of drones has been a big deal to be implemented in because, you know, the terrain of Middle East is way, way different because of all the caves and all the hiding spots and, you know, the rough terrain that's in there. Yes, sir.
What did it like say like the people that were there, like how did it sound like? Because like, you know, when you hear like the plane crash, like it's pretty loud. Like I wanted to how low it was.
Man, I can only the boom of the plane itself. So what they did was is they planned it. The planes that they hijacked were supposed to go from the east coast of the United States across the ocean to Europe. So those planes were fully loaded with jet fuel. So they were a gigantic bomb, essentially is what it was. It ignited in the flame, and then of course and then everything else goes down. The caving of the buildings, I mean, I can only imagine what that was like, because, you know, planned demolition is based upon ignition, so then that way the whole building collapses in a certain direction, as compared to the whole thing just incinerating and going down. The amount of ash that was covered for blocks and blocks and blocks of, you know, just everybody being covered in what looks like volcanic ash was crazy. Probably a lot of traumatic sounds, you know what I mean, for people that were at ground zero that was there. So ground zero today is a gigantic memorial. If you ever want to look at this right here, like this 911memorial.org, this website is a very good one. Where the Twin Towers stood, there's a gigantic waterfall that kind of goes down. They have rebuilt one of the towers itself. But what did the Twin Towers stand for? Like when they said 90 other countries, what was the semblance of the Twin Towers?
It stands for the World Trade Center. It wasn't where they would trade goods from one country to another.
So the power of the United States and all the unification of all the other countries in that one building, you know, to kind of show the power of the United States economy. So if that was one way to come in, you know, Al-Qaeda and ISIS, one of the big things, they understood that you could not beat the United States in a head-to-head battle. You know what I mean? The only way to cripple the United States, honestly, is to cripple the United States based upon its economic process. So if you can cripple the United States economically, if you can cripple the United States via, whether it be a virus, whether it be attack, whether it be something else that's in there, that's kind of big. You're not going to open up your canvas while I take this call. And I'll talk to you about the assignment.
Yeah, so I've actually been to the memorial, and it's a square. There's two squares where both of the buildings stand, and there's a bunch of names on them. Yes, ma'am. There's been multiple attempts since that time to actually hijack planes and crash them into other buildings, but there's so much security now on planes that it's very hard to make it almost impossible. Yeah. Huh? Yeah, there's been multiple tries for terrorist organizations to take control of buses, trains, planes, different modes of transportation.
Okay, so when you pull up your canvas, and you'll pull up that 9/11 writing assignment, okay, and it's pretty simple, kind of straightforward here. It says, how important will the attacks of September 11, 2001 appear in 50 years' time? Well, the thing is, we've gone through 20 years worth of it already. Will they seem like a turning point in world history as the beginning of a new round of global conflicts? Or more optimistically, is it possible that they will appear as a turning point in a world progressively freed of brutal world conflicts? What's your guess? What's your hope? What I want you to do in this is write down a thought-out short essay. Use the previous knowledge on the subject or the information in the class from the video, things we've discussed that's in there. You know, whatever happened that day, again, like your lives has only been shaped by war for a long time. How many of you have any family members that are in the military? Anybody in here? Okay, so quite a few, honestly, based upon percentage-wise. You know, all of those people. There was even talk during the time of after 9/11 of the draft being re-implemented to where anybody that was over the age of 18, social services, you sign up for them as a male, being chosen to come back in there, whether you wanted to be in the military or not be in the military, based upon the number of people that the United States needed to fight this war. I told the story of Pat Tillman to the other class. Pat Tillman was a guy that played in the NFL, all-pro safety, walked away from about $5 million in contract money So then that way, whenever he walked away from it, he went to join the Army, ended up being a Green Beret, passed away 1.5 to 2 years within the war. But the sacrifice that he made as a choice, to go into the war was kind of the same way that the rest of the United States, a lot of those people felt was their duty to be able to do that. So a lot of y'all have probably been impacted in some way because of the events, whether it be your mom, your dad, your uncle, your cousin, your brother, someone who ended up joining the military and, kind of gave their life of service, because that's what being in the military is. It was honestly a huge sacrifice of a life of service, of time and things like that. So anyway, answer this question, turn that in. I think it's open until Monday. So you guys are good on that one, just to fill that in whenever you have the opportunity to. Right now would be a great time to do it during class. And that's it for today.